isn't it? Like, how are you going to get your sacrifice to Jerusalem? Think that one through for a bit. I'm not going to answer that one today. But how would you actually take care of this? In the wilderness, it's a lot easier, right? Because where is Israel in relation to the tabernacle? I mean, how far away is the tabernacle when you're in Israel in the wilderness? It's right there. Yeah, it's right in the center of the camp. Right, you've got the tabernacle in the center, and all the tribes are arranged in a ring or a square, whatever, around the tabernacle. It's all one camp. Right, you've just got to walk to the middle of camp, and you can take your offering right there. Yes, that's essentially the solution. That is, and we'll see where that is prescribed later on. But whenever you're going to take an offering, you can, instead of actually taking the actual animal from your flock and the actual produce from your land, you can sell it off where you live, take the money down to Jerusalem with you, and buy the offerings down in Jerusalem. Now, can you imagine the potential for abuse with that? I mean, we see it in the New Testament. It's the only time that Jesus whips people. That's precisely what's going on. All right. Let's see. So these are voluntary offerings. By the way, before we jump into anything new, any questions or comments about this association between the grain offering and the drink offering and the other offerings? Okay. Then let's consider the schedule of these offerings. In Numbers 15, the Lord mentions all of these occasions when the offerings would be made. Right? In verse 3, when you offer to the Lord from the herd or from the flock a food offering or a burnt offering or a sacrifice to fulfill a vow, or as a free will offering, or at your appointed feasts. Right? These are occasions when you would make these kinds of offerings. So, for example, you would offer these along with a couple of other sacrifices when you fulfill a Nazirite vow. All right, we'll look at the Nazirite vow specifically in another part of the class. But these offerings would be among the offerings that you give whenever you complete a Nazirite vow. They can be given as free will offerings, so just whenever it strikes you, hey, I need to offer these things to the Lord. But there are also appointed times when these offerings have to be made. And those we read about in Numbers chapter 28. Numbers chapter 28. This gives us the schedule for the burnt offerings. And then once we're done with this, we'll move on to peace offerings. But Numbers 28. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Command to the people of Israel, and say to them, my offerings, my food for my food offerings, my pleasing aroma, you shall be careful to offer to me at its appointed time. And you shall say to them, this is the food offering that you shall offer to the Lord. 2 male lambs, a year old, without blemish, day by day, as a regular offering." All right, so first off, just right out of the gate, we can see that this is not the same as a free will burnt offering necessarily, right? Because for the free will burnt offering, you have options. It can be a bull, it can be a sheep, it can be a bird. The restrictions are they have to be male and they have to be unblemished. Right? Here, it's a special burnt offering that has to be offered day by day. 2 male lambs, a year old without blemish, day by day as a regular offering. The one lamb you shall offer in the morning, the other lamb you shall offer at twilight. Also 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour for a grain offering, mixed with 1/4 of a hin of beaten oil. It is a regular burnt offering, which was ordained at Mount Sinai for a pleasing aroma, a food offering to the Lord. Its drink offerings shall be 1/4 of a hin for each lamb. In the holy place you shall pour out a drink offering of strong drink to the Lord. The other lamb you shall offer at twilight. Like the grain offering of the morning, and like its drink offering, you shall offer it as a food offering with a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Excuse me. All right, so this, and by the way, this offering is given as a corporate offering, right? So in other words, it's not that every person in Israel has to show up every morning and every evening at Jerusalem, right? That wouldn't make any sense, right? This is what has to be offered by the priests, essentially on behalf of all Israel each day. Wayne, I saw your hand. More than likely, based on what they had there. That's why it's referred to as beaten oil. Yeah, because you have to beat it and press it out. Yeah. Okay, so there you have a burnt offering of a lamb, you have a grain offering, and you have a drink offering poured out in the holy place. Now this detail I'm not sure about, like exactly what to do with it, because do y'all remember what all's in the holy place? I don't know if you still have the diagram of the tabernacle that I gave you. And I meant to run off more copies of that. But what is the holy place? Right. Sorry, go ahead a little louder. Yeah, you've got the table of showbread, you've got the fire. Yeah, the altar of incense. What's not in the holy place? The ark, that's in the most holy place, and the altar of burnt offering, that's out in the courtyard. So the provision here is that the drink offering is to be poured out in the holy place. Exactly where, in relation to what, we don't know. But the rest of it is to be offered out in the courtyard on the altar of burnt offering. Let's see. All right, so that's every single day, right? In fact, we can start tallying this up, by the way. Every single day, one lamb in the morning, one lamb in the evening. All right, verse 9. On the Sabbath day, 2 male lambs a year old without blemish, and 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour for a grain offering mixed with oil and its drink offerings. This is the burnt offering of every Sabbath, besides the regular burnt offering and its drink offering. All right, so now essentially on the Sabbath, we're doubling up on morning and evening sacrifices. Verse 11, at the beginnings of your months, you shall offer a burnt offering to the Lord, 2 bulls from the herd, 1 ram, 7 male lambs a year old without blemish, also 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour for a grain offering mixed with oil for each bull, and 2/10 of fine flour for a grain offering mixed with oil for the 1 ram. 1/10 of fine flour mixed with oil is a grain offering for every lamb, for a burnt offering with a pleasing aroma, a food offering to the Lord. Their drink offerings shall be 1/2 a hin of wine for a bull, 1/3 of a hin for a ram, 1/4 of a hin for a lamb. This is the burnt offering for each month throughout the months of the year. Also 1 male goat for a sin offering to the Lord. It shall be offered besides the regular burnt offering and its drink offering. All right, now, think this through for a second. All right, imagine that you are one of the sons of Aaron. Imagine you're a priest. All right, what was yesterday? What all was yesterday? Yesterday was February 1st. It was a Saturday. All right, what all have we already triggered in this law? You've got the regular daily sacrifice. You have the Sabbath offering. You have the first day you have the monthly offering as well. So you've got 2 lambs for the regular offering, 2 more male lambs for the Sabbath offering, so now we're up to 4 male lambs, along with their grain offerings and drink offerings. And then for the monthly offering, you've got 2 bulls, 1 ram, and 7 lambs. So we're up to a total of 11 lambs, along with the 2 bulls and the 1 ram, with a boatload of flour. And, I honestly had not added up all of the wine. But it's a lot of wine. That was their only job. Let's say what? No, this is not something that you're responsible for individually, right? This is something that's offered corporately. Yeah, so the priests offer this on behalf of Israel. Yeah. But this is, yeah, I mean, at the first day of every month, there's that offering. Every Sabbath day, there's that offering. Right, now, the Jewish calendar, I should have looked this up before I thought about this. The Jewish calendar was a little more like regular in some senses than ours is. In terms of like the first day of the month would always be the same day of the week each month. I don't remember if it's a Sabbath though. So I don't know how often this might be something that would happen every month, that you would have these 11 lambs and 1 ram and 2 bulls to offer, along with enough wine to swim in. Yeah, on a lunar calendar. Right, yeah, they were on a lunar calendar. Excuse me. Yes. Yeah, but that's, again, you think of it, the priests, like, that is their job. Their only job is to offer these sacrifices, to remember these sacrifices. And Drew, the priestly class, along with the Levites, they are trained specifically for this. They're the only ones that are trained how to like read and write, right? Because it's their job to maintain the law. It's the job of the Levites every 7 years, remember, to read the law out to the whole congregation, right? So this is their bread and butter. This is what they live and breathe, is keeping all of this and remembering all of it. But yeah, it's a lot. All of the specific amounts too. And they don't necessarily have the convenience of just being able to, plop a book down and just open it up at will. They would have had this memorized. All right, but we're not done yet. Verse 16. On the 14th day of the first month is the Lord's Passover, and on the 15th day of this month is a feast. 7 days shall unleavened bread be eaten. On the first day there shall be a holy convocation. You shall not do any ordinary work, but offer a food offering, a burnt offering to the Lord. 2 bulls from the herd, 1 ram, and 7 male lambs a year old. See that they are without blemish. Also their grain offerings of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah you shall offer for a bull, 2/10 for a ram, 1/10 you shall offer for each of the 7 lambs, and also 1 male goat for a sin offering. Oh, I forgot about the male goat. That would be the other thing you would have to offer for a sin offering. But we'll come to sin offerings in a minute. To make atonement for you. You shall offer these besides the burnt offering of the morning, which is for a regular burnt offering. In the same way, you shall offer daily for 7 days the food of a food offering with a pleasing aroma to the Lord. It shall be offered besides the regular burnt offering and its drink offering. And on the 7th day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall not do any work. All right, so now during Passover, you have this, it's another huge sacrifice, exactly on the same level as the monthly sacrifice, except that now you're offering it in the middle of the month, as well as having offered it at the beginning of the month. And you are offering it, again, on top of the regular burnt offering, along with an additional daily offering for 7 days. The food offering that is offered besides the regular burnt offering. All right, so again, at Passover time, you're offering a ton of animals, and a lot of wine, and a lot of flour. Verse 26. On the day of the first fruits, when you offer a grain offering of new grain to the Lord at your Feast of Weeks, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall not do any ordinary work, but offer a burnt offering with a pleasing aroma to the Lord, 2 bulls from the herd, 1 ram, 7 male lambs a year old. Right, so we're seeing a pattern, right? Also their grain offering, the fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for each bull, 2/10 for 1 ram, 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs, with 1 male goat to make atonement for you. Besides the regular burnt offering and its grain offering, you shall offer them and their drink offering. See that they are without blemish. Let's see. We also have at the Feast of Trumpets, which we read in the first 6 verses of chapter 29. You have, I think it's the same offering. Oh, no, it's a much bigger offering for Sukkot. So it's the same offering. No, it's a slightly different offering for Feast of Trumpets. Let's look at Feast of Trumpets real quick. I don't necessarily want to keep reading like the same words over and over and over, but this one is a little different. Numbers 29. On the first day of the 7th month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall not do any ordinary work. It is a day for you to blow the trumpets. And you shall offer a burnt offering for a pleasing aroma to the Lord. 1 bull from the herd, 1 ram, 7 male lambs a year old without blemish. All right, so you get to save 1 bull on this one. Also, their grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for the ram, 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs, with 1 male goat for a sin offering to make atonement for you. Besides, all right, because remember, this is something that's happening on the first day of the 7th month, right? So we already have the first day of the month sacrifice to offer on top of this, right? So it's besides the burnt offering of the new moon, right? Because that's the beginning of the month. Besides the burnt offerings of the new moon and its grain offering, and the regular burnt offerings and its grain offering, and their drink offering, according to the rule for them, for a pleasing aroma, a food offering to the Lord. All right, so at the Feast of Trumpets, it has its own special sacrifice. You have the first day of the month sacrifice, and you have the regular offering for that day. All right, so those all pile up. Day of Atonement. On the 10th day of this 7th month, you shall have a holy convocation and afflict yourselves. You shall do no work, but you shall offer a burnt offering to the Lord, a pleasing aroma. 1 bull from the herd, 1 ram, 7 male lambs a year old. See that they are without blemish. And their grain offering shall be of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for the ram, 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs. Also a male goat for a sin offering, besides the sin offering of atonement, and the regular burnt offerings, and its grain offering, and their drink offerings. All right, so Day of Atonement is more than just the offering of the goat for atonement, which we'll come to when we come to it. It also includes an additional special sacrifice that you give on top of the regular daily burnt offering. All right, Feast of Booths. We're going to see some crazy numbers in this one. On the 15th day of the 7th month, all right, so notice, this is all happening, everything that we've read in chapter 29 is all happening in the 7th month. This is a big month. You lose a lot of animals in the 7th month. On the 15th day of the 7th month, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall not do any work, and you shall keep a feast to the Lord 7 days. And you shall offer for a burnt offering, a food offering, with a pleasing aroma to the Lord, 13 bulls from the herd, 2 rams, 14 male lambs a year old. They shall be without blemish. And their grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for each of the 13 bulls, 2/10 for each of the 2 rams, 1/10 for each of the 14 lambs. Also 1 male goat for a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. Now, by the way, just to come back to what you were saying earlier, Kathleen, you might notice the more, as we continue reading through this, some of these patterns get stuck in your head, right? So like as we come to the grain offering for the male lambs, like you probably already remember what it's going to be, right? Oh, it's 1/10 of an ephah. Because it's just repeated over and over. That's how they remember it. They just repeat it a lot. All right, so you've got the male goat for a sin offering, plus the regular burnt offering, along with its grain offering and drink offering. On the 2nd day, all right, so that offering, 13 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs, that was the first day of Sukkot. It is a 7-day feast. On the 2nd day of Sukkot, the priest sacrificed for me 12 bulls from the herd, 2 rams, 14 male lambs a year old without blemish, etc. All right, and we're going to go through each day and just look at what the numbers do. Verse 20. On the 3rd day, 11 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs. All right, we detect the pattern already. The number of bulls is going down. Everything else stays the same. 14 male lambs every day for a week. On the fourth day, 10 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs, right, along with the grain offerings, drink offerings, the sin offering of a goat. Verse 26, on the fifth day, 9 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs. Verse 29, on the sixth day, 8 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs. Verse 32, on the seventh day, 7 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs. And then verse 35, excuse me, on the 8th day, you shall have a solemn assembly. You shall not do any ordinary work, but you shall offer a burnt offering, a food offering with a pleasing aroma to the Lord, 1 bull, 1 ram, 7 male lambs a year old without blemish, and the grain offering and drink offerings for the bull, for the ram, and for the lambs in the prescribed quantities. See, even by this point, Moses is getting tired of repeating the same thing over and over. By this point, he expects us to know what the prescribed quantities are, because he said them so much. Also, 1 male goat for a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering and its grain offering and its drink offering. These you shall offer to the Lord at your appointed feasts, in addition to your vow offerings, and your freewill offerings, for your burnt offerings, and for your grain offerings, and for your drink offerings, and for your peace offerings. All right, so all of that we just read in chapters 28 and 29, that's baseline. And it is expected on top of that, that each individual Israelite would also provide any offerings necessary for any vows that they have made, plus other free will offerings, so burnt offerings and peace offerings. All right, and that's their individual burden on top of what the priests have already offered for all of them over the Feast of Booths. So, yes, but that's common in the ancient world, right? In fact, there are plenty of places today where the livestock outnumber the people. Yeah, even in modern developed nations. You go over to the United Kingdom, Wales has more sheep than people. Just thinking about my own experience, there were, if you included my grandparents and my aunt and uncle and cousin, there were 8 Adkissons living on the farm that we had, and we usually kept somewhere in the neighborhood, upwards of 40 head of cattle. So we were outnumbered by the livestock pretty easily. We weren't killing them all the time. Well, not like this, but we kept ourselves in stake. But yeah, it is a massive number. Yeah, this is where our traditional English understanding of the word sacrifice, bears some meaning here, because it would bite into your livelihood, right? It would be a sacrifice in that sense. You were really giving something up. Because remember, how does everybody make their living in the ancient world? Are they making any profit? Not at all. They are subsistence farmers. And what the Lord is asking is that they give. Well, again, remember, some of these offerings, like these ones that we've read in Numbers 28 and 29, these are communal offerings, right? So these would come from the flocks and herds kept by the tribe of Levi, and those are brought in from a tithe from all Israel, right? So there wouldn't be a really big individual impact on you for all of these sacrifices. The real impact would be the additional sacrifices that Moses talks about here at the end. Your free will offerings, the extra burnt offerings and peace offerings, and the fulfilling of vows that you would make at these appointed feasts. So, any other questions or comments about everything that we've just read here? Oh boy, yeah. Honestly, I can't. I can't imagine all. Yeah, because they all have to be drained and their blood is thrown against the altar. Nope. And I can't imagine walking on that ground. I mean, at some point, it's just got to be a slurry. Plus, wherever they're pouring out all of the wine. So, it might smell a little better at first, but that's going to smell pretty bad too eventually. That's why, this helps us maybe appreciate the altar of incense a little bit better, right? There is some practical purpose besides the sacrificial, the worship purpose of the altar of incense. Keith, I saw your hand. Yes. Yes. It is. Yeah, it's the right. Exactly. So remember why Israel's not allowed to eat blood. Right? God explained it to Noah way, way early on. Why are you not supposed to eat blood? Yeah, the life is in the blood. And that's what the blood signifies, a life for a life. Right? That's why, we talked on Thursday about, putting your hand on the sacrifice. There's a practical effect to that. You got to hold the beast down, keep it still so the priest can kill it. But there's also a symbolic purpose to putting your hand on the sacrifice. The sacrifice is made in your stead, right? The sacrifice is killed instead of you. The sacrifice's blood flows instead of yours, right? A life for a life. That's what we learn from these sacrifices. Now, the Hebrew writer tells us, for all of that blood, what effect did it have? None. That's the crazy thing. More than just the sheer amount of blood, the fact that it had no effect. That's it. Yeah, that's the thing. That's what we are still supposed to take away from these sacrifices. It is, again, remember what Paul says about the law. It's like our tutor taking us to Christ, right? And what we learn from these sacrifices is that blood requires blood, right? A life for a life. And if it's not somebody else's blood, it's our blood. That's what we're supposed to take away from this. That's what God was training Israel to understand whenever he commanded all of these sacrifices. And what's funny is we have yet to get to the sacrifices that are specifically given for sin. But that lesson is already being taught, blood for blood. Even in the voluntary worship of the Lord, what is being given out of the goodwill of Israel's hearts, this principle of blood for blood is still there. All right, well, we've only got a couple minutes left, so I don't necessarily want to dig into the peace offerings yet. Any other questions or comments about the burnt offering? Boy, howdy, yes. We are quite fortunate. Yeah, that's the other thing that should impress us about all of this. So the Hebrew writer tells us that Jesus' sacrifice is once for all. That encompasses a huge amount, right? For all doesn't just mean for all people. It does mean that, but it's that plus, it's for all, as in all of these sacrifices that we read about in the Mosaic Law are subsumed under the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Again, we have only looked at the burnt offerings, along with their grain offerings and drink offerings. We've not even gotten to the sin offerings and the guilt offerings. Right? Christ replaces those. His sacrifice is once for all. And his sacrifice does something even that these sacrifices, even as they were stated in the law of Moses, could never do. Right? Because the law of Moses gives Israel the expectation that they can have their unintentional sins forgiven, that they can have their sins committed in ignorance forgiven, but they are under no illusions about their high-handed sin. Right? Again, there's no sacrifice for that, for their high-handed sin. The sacrifice of Christ covers even that. And what a boon to sinners that is. Because, have you ever done anything out of contrariness? Have you ever committed a high-handed sin out of spite? just because you're a willful person. I know I have. I'm not going to point any fingers at anybody else. I can point all of my own fingers at myself. And thank God for His Son, who has given us that. I hope that as we continue this study, we keep getting a deeper and deeper appreciation for the sacrifice of Christ. Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and I'll run off some more copies of that for any who are interested. I'll have them back on the sound booth. I think there's only one back there for now, so don't take it. I need that to run off the copies. Thank you so much for your kind attention and your questions and comments.